Hey, this is Charles Calhoun, aka the Shade Tree Pro. Now, what I'm getting ready to share with you is something, it's already known. I'm a big Moe Norman fan, and not so much about everybody just trying to do the Moe Norman, to get down in these positions and that. In other words, just copying what his swing looked like. My studies have taken me to the point that I'm not about so much of what his swing looked like as more about the functionalities in a sense of what the anatomical movements of the body that he did that created those actions. For an example, most of us in our basic conventional golf swing, we stand up with the golf ball, we set up here, get a ball position, we set the club back behind the ball here, we take it back and we try to hit it like everybody else does. Many people have had success with it if they get their body moving properly. But we're trying to find a way to make it simpler in a sense that some of these actions take care of themselves. Just like anything else, if we could get a running start, like in a race or anything, if we could get a running start to what we're trying to do, it better programs the body to move in the precise actions that's necessary. Now, Moe spoke a lot about lateral motion in his golf swing. Now, I know that it's a debate whether you use the hips, whether you use the pelvis, however you do it in a sense. But one thing is absolutely for certain, which I tend to believe, is that the only way that the body can move is that the feet have to move. And I think there's a precise way that the feet have to move, for an example, because lateral motion in itself is nothing but moving sideways. So if lateral motion is moving sideways, then there's a program, our mind and body, a program of how our feet are supposed to move that. So one moves and one receives. So what is extraordinary about Moe that I've come to understand, let's try to answer this question. Why did Moe Norman set the club back there? I know at one time he had spoke that it was just something that one day he started doing it and it felt good there and he kept it there. But he did talk so much about his lateral motion. So if I set the club here, now I'm going to use this little green piece as a spot there. If I set the club at that angle behind there, this gap, this space right here, my mind, my body, my everything is telling me that I have to cover that gap. Somehow, some way, I have to cover that gap. Now, if I just make a golf swing and I stay right here and spin, there's no way I can get to it. But because I understand that I have to cover that gap to get back through the ball, then now, in essence, my mind, my body is already programmed that I have to move. So by being able to move, once I get that movement going, then it can't stop me if everything else in the body is in sequence or whatever to go down the line to strike through the golf ball. It's kind of like once the stones start rolling off the top of the mountain, momentum just keeps it going. So I personally think that Moe Norman's golf swing was a lot simpler because of the way he set that club behind that golf ball. Because he was always programming the feet to move. Most amateurs and a lot of people that I teach, one thing that they have so bad is they have terrible foot action, that they don't really get the feet moving. And one thing I said before, as I said earlier, you cannot move the body without moving the feet. That's just impossible in itself. So what's happening basically a lot in the conventional golf swing, that's why you see a lot of people that are spinning. So they're trying to get to their left side because they're trying to create that action of moving. So I could just as movably shift, keep my head there, I can do anything that I want. Because no different than we know the direction that that club is going, we're getting an advantage by absolutely knowing no matter what we do, we have to cover that gap. That space that I put this to show between the ball and the club face, we have to cover that space. And the only way that we can cover that space to be able to strike the ball, it'll help us get our hands in a position how we need to, is that we have to be able to move. We have to be able to move our feet in a sense or whatever to get that club going to strike through that ball. And if you do that properly, you'll be surprised, because you understanding what you have to do, how much easier it is and how consistent and much more consistent it is to be able to strike down and through the golf. So now I hope I gave some clarity of understanding why Moe Norman, one of my favorite, I just love his golf swing, And, he's going to start getting the credit that he deserves, because my research has shown me some phenomenal things about how his golf swing worked. A lot of times we all know that he said certain things that really didn't maybe match up to exactly what he was doing in a sense, but those are things that he felt. And I always said, when it comes to a golf swing, we're not trying to create a feel, because a feel can disappear just a moment if I grab the club and go back and put my hand on it. What we're trying to do is create movements that create feelings, feelings more. So we can create all kinds of different types of golf shots, whatever you want. So as I said, as I do my study of Moe and my research of Moe Norman and what I've begun to learn, I'm going to start telling you some things that maybe Moe saw and taught and people talked about, but they not given complete clarity on. And this is the very first thing that I said I'm going to speak of. No matter what you're doing, if your hands are here, you have to cover that gap. And that gap is only covered by how we move the feet. And there is a precise way of moving the ankles, the feet, or whatever to get that done. Once again, this is Charles Calhoun, aka the Shade Tree Pro, and always good golfing.